I have many accounts in this book here, the Atlas of the Transatlantic Slave Trade. Now, one of the first things that I made note of in here were slaves, the number of slaves that were carried by nationality of the vessel that carried them from 1508 to 1867. Now, you can't really get a good look at this now, but I'm going to be posting pictures of this along with the video and everything like that up on Facebook. But it tells you from 1501 to 1867 the number of slaves taken from Africa by nationality of the vessel, where they were taken. So it lists Spain, Uruguay, Portugal, Great Britain, the Netherlands, the U.S., France, Baltic states, and it lists all of these things. I also have a slave database of the voyages, the documents, pictures, everything. I'm going to be supplying that link as well. You will get all of that shit. All of that. So don't worry. All of that is coming. Okay? But this book has documentation on all of these things. How these people suffered. How they weren't allowed to read anything. You didn't have any of this shit happening with Irish indentured servitude. Like I said, there is not a single Irish slave or indentured servant listed in this book. Why? Because they weren't fucking slaves. Okay? I've made it a mission to find this shit out and to research this topic well because I have both African and Irish roots. So I made sure to look into this shit so I knew the story from both sides because I'm not going to believe bullshit from either one of them. I can use this. And I use this to research this shit, to find out the truth. And I would implore all of you to do the same about your own history. Please, read up on this shit, people. Do not be afraid to educate yourselves. Now, during some of the voyages, the hundreds, thousands of voyages that were made to transport slaves, there were accounts, and they were pretty numerous themselves in the slave narratives here, of European crew members who would repeatedly, and I do mean repeatedly, rape the female slaves. And in one particular instance where the former slave Gustavus Vasa had written in his autobiography that the female slaves, chattel slaves on that ship, were being raped so much that the captain had to fire the fucking dude that was doing it. It was happening that much. Now, you already know that when he's doing it, they don't give a shit. They don't care that he's doing it already. But the fact that he is doing it so often, he gets his ass fired during these times, that tells you something. I mean, that's fucking ridiculous, man. Ridiculous. But where are the accounts, that this shit happened with the Irish? You had 100,000 fucking children snatched away from their mothers and fathers, sold into slavery. Claims are made by these sources who consider themselves historians and shit or whatever, with no credibility whatsoever. But they claim that the British planters sated their sexual desires by preying on these children and the female Irish slaves. According to who? Where the fucking proof at, dog? Yo, I got proof of this shit happening right here in the book, man. Again, here it is, okay? Proof is in here. These people wrote this shit down, man. There's evidence that it happened. Now, one specific instance that I just talked about there where the crew member was fired, okay? The female slave that this person was repeatedly raping and was fired because of was 10 years old. 10 years old. Now, I say all of this because there are arguments being made that, again, like I said with Mr. Doonigan, that this should happen to the Irish too. And while, yes, I agree that, yes, indentured servants were treated like absolute shit. Yes, I would agree with that statement. Okay? But as far as trying to put it on the same plateau of chattel slavery, you're out of your mind. You are out of your mind. Unless you have proof, you should probably just shut up. It's best you don't say anything else about that. Okay? Because you cannot, if you can't show me proof on how you believe that this should happen, don't talk about it. Because you don't know what you're talking about. Okay? This is evidence here. All you've seen these individuals do, like Burnett and Doonigan, and others like them, Sean O'Callaghan, who wrote To Hell or Barbados, is they're conflating issues, some of which happened before they even made it to the fucking colonies in the U.S. These people are conflating stories that happened before the Irish even set foot on American soil with supposedly what happened when they got there. Like, I mean, they act like people aren't going to look into this and check into this shit, man. Are they crazy? Do they think people like myself aren't going to look into this and check this shit and debunk it because we know something isn't quite right about that? I don't understand how these people can just... But anyway, they seem to think that they're at Subway, and they have this bullshit sandwich and they just get to pick the different pieces of Irish history and slap that shit together in this shit sandwich and call it Irish slavery. And of course, some of you are out there like, oh, this looks pretty fucking good. I'm gonna take a bite. But you just don't stop with one. It's like a Lay's potato chip. You gotta keep going. So I don't understand. I don't understand how people can believe this nonsense that's coming out of these people's mouths. Again, this is why I keep telling you, educate yourselves. These false narratives would have no power if we educated ourselves about this shit. They would have no power. These people would stop talking about this shit. They wouldn't even bring it up anymore if we started educating ourselves and actually verifying these facts to see if they're true and can actually call them facts. But they know we're not. See, they're feeding on the emotions. And most of us are just giving into it. We're just giving into it. It's as if we have no reasoning powers whatsoever. Now, there's a specific historian who had written a book in 1975. His name is Edward Morgan. And this book was written in 1975 titled American Slavery, American Freedom. And in it, so to touch back on something I had mentioned earlier, he talks about the paradox between freedom for Americans and the accompanying respect that Americans had for slavery. And Morgan himself stated that the answer to that was that chattel slavery, not indentured servitude, chattel slavery, provided the social and intellectual environment for the freedom and superiority of Europeans. Plain and simple. Because why else hide and Europeanize African history the way it's been done? What other reason is there for that? If you have no intent on keeping these people enslaved for generations to come, why erase their history and change it and steal it and deface it. What's the reason for that?